I thought he loved me, but when I told him I was pregnant, he just stared at me like I was a complete stranger. "You're lying," George said, his eyes completely empty of emotion. His voice was so cold it shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces. I reached for his hand, desperate for any kind of connection, but he stepped back like I carried some contagious disease. "I can't be with you, Henry. Don't you get it? All of this was a mistake." A mistake? I'd spent nearly 4 months with him, every single night wrapped in his arms, feeling safe and wanted. He'd bonded with me on his own terms. Omega instincts are so powerful that we physically can't leave our alpha once that connection forms. And now he was saying it was all just an error in judgment? "George, please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Don't leave me. I'm carrying your baby." He grabbed his jacket off the chair. "That's not my problem, Henry. You live your life. I'll live mine." Then he walked out the door, slamming shut behind him, taking my entire world with it. I collapsed right there on the floor. My lungs couldn't find air. George's scent still lingered in the apartment, that smoky cedar mixed with rain-soaked leather. The smell that always made me feel protected now felt like torture. I pressed my hand against my stomach. There was barely a bump yet, but it was real. This baby was real. The next morning I tried tracking his phone, only to discover he'd changed his number completely. His apartment stood empty when I went there, like he'd never existed at all. I called the company where he claimed to work, but the receptionist told me no one named George Blake was employed there. My hands trembled uncontrollably. What was happening? Had he been lying this whole time? Why did everything feel so calculated and planned? Over the following weeks, I learned how to hide my pregnancy. Loose hoodies became my uniform. I didn't even tell my roommate Luca. Shame consumed me. An Omega abandoned by their alpha becomes society's punchline. People always assume something must be wrong with the Omega if their alpha walks away. I picked up extra shifts at the diner where I worked, trying to save money for the baby. Every day felt like dragging myself through quicksand. Customers would smile at me, make small talk, and I'd force myself to smile back while dying inside. At night I'd curl up in bed, hugging George's old shirt that still carried traces of his scent, crying until my pillow was soaked. My body was changing. Morning sickness hit me hard during the 2nd month. I'd rush to the bathroom between serving tables, trying not to let anyone notice. The exhaustion was overwhelming, but worse than any physical symptom was the emptiness the bond George had created, then severed, left a gaping wound in my chest that wouldn't heal. Luca started asking questions. "You've been acting strange lately. Are you sick?" "Just tired," I'd lie. "Picking up too many shifts." But I could see the doubt in his eyes. He knew something was wrong, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth. "How do you explain that you fell in love with someone who turned out to be a ghost?" Then one night, as I headed home from a late shift at the diner, black SUVs surrounded me on the empty street. A man emerged, expensive suit, emotionless eyes. He handed me an envelope without a word. "Henry Lynn?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "Yes, why?" He smiled, but the expression was terrifying. "Because that alpha you've been searching for, his real name isn't George Blake. It's Damon Ashford. And he wasn't some random boyfriend you met. He's the most powerful Mafia heir in this entire city." My blood turned to ice as the man walked away, leaving me alone on the dark street with an envelope that would change everything. I stood there frozen, clutching the envelope, my mind spinning. The streetlight above me flickered, casting shadows that seemed to dance mockingly around me. A Mafia heir, George or Damon, or whoever he really was, had been living a double life, and I'd been nothing but a pawn in whatever game he was playing. I stumbled the rest of the way home, my legs barely carrying me. Once inside my apartment, I locked the door and leaned against it, sliding down to the floor. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. Everything I thought I knew was a lie. I opened the envelope after sitting on my couch for what felt like hours, my hands shaking so badly the paper nearly slipped through my fingers. Inside was a photograph. George was in it, except this wasn't the George I knew. In this picture, he wore an incredibly expensive black suit, armed bodyguards flanking him on both sides, standing in front of a massive estate that looked like something out of a movie. The headline printed below read, "Damon Ashford, heir to the Ashford Empire, returns to the city after 6 months abroad." My mind went completely blank. This was the same guy who took me on pizza dates, who held my hand while browsing thrift stores and laughing at terrible movies, who told me about his normal office job and complained about his boss. He'd been lying about everything. I read the article attached to the photo. It detailed the Ashford family's empire: real estate, construction, investments, and barely concealed references to other business ventures that I suspected meant organized crime. Damon Ashford was the only son, the heir to billions, and apparently someone important enough that his movements made the news. Then understanding hit me like a freight train. He'd been playing pretend with me. A wealthy alpha wanting to experience normal life with a simple omega who knew nothing about his real world. And when the novelty wore off, when things got complicated with the pregnancy, he tossed me aside like yesterday's trash. Anger flared through me, hot and consuming. But more than that, I felt devastated. Because if he was this powerful, he could have helped me and our baby. He could have provided safety, security, everything we needed. Instead, he abandoned us like we meant absolutely nothing. I spent the entire night researching him online. Photos of Damon Ashford at charity galas, business meetings, standing beside his father Victor Ashford at various events. In every picture he looked cold, distant, nothing like the warm man who used to make me breakfast and kiss my forehead. That George had been a character he played. This Damon was the reality. The next morning I made the bravest decision of my life. I was going to confront him. He didn't get to just disappear and pretend I didn't exist. He didn't get to leave me drowning while he lived in luxury. Our baby deserved better than a father who ran away. I took 3 buses to reach the address listed for the Ashford estate. The journey took over 2 hours, and with each passing mile my determination grew stronger. By the time I arrived at the massive iron gates, I was ready for war. Guards tried stopping me immediately. 2 large men in black suits stepped forward, blocking my path. "This is private property," one said. "You need to leave." "No," I said firmly, my voice stronger than I felt. "Tell Damon Ashford that Henry is here, and I've brought his baby with me." The guards exchanged glances. One of them grabbed his walkie-talkie and spoke quietly into it. I caught fragments. "Omega at the gate, claims to be carrying, should..." Minutes passed. I stood there refusing to move, one hand protectively over my stomach. Then the walkie-talkie crackled with a response I couldn't hear. And suddenly the massive gate began to swing open. "Follow me," the guard said, his tone shifting from dismissive to cautious. Walking inside felt surreal. The driveway alone was longer than my entire street back home. Perfectly manicured gardens stretched in every direction. The mansion itself was breathtaking: white stone, massive columns, windows that gleamed in the afternoon sun. I realized this place was no joke. Marble floors stretched endlessly once we entered. Crystal chandeliers hung overhead, each one probably worth more than I'd earn in 10 years. Armed men stood at every corner, watching my every move. My heart pounded violently. I hadn't expected anything like this. Then I saw him. George, no. Damon stood at the bottom of a grand staircase. Same sharp jawline, same intense eyes that used to look at me with tenderness. But here he was different. Commanding, powerful, terrifying. "Henry," he said, his voice containing zero warmth. "You shouldn't have come here." "Why not?" I shot back, my anger overriding my fear. My eyes filled with tears, but I forced them down, refusing to appear weak. "Because you don't want me in your real world now. You lied to me about everything, Damon. You used me like I was some kind of toy." His jaw clenched tight, muscles tensing. "You don't understand." "No," I shouted, my voice echoing through the massive entryway. "You don't understand. I'm carrying your baby and you abandoned me like I was garbage. Do you have any idea what these past weeks have been like? Do you even care?" For the first time, I saw something crack in his expression: guilt, pain. But then he reconstructed his mask, his face becoming stone. "That baby is your problem, Henry. I never made you any promises. What we had was temporary." My heart shattered again, somehow worse than before, because now I was hearing the real him, not the character he'd played. But then another man entered the room. Older, probably in his 60s, with sharp, distinguished features and an air of absolute authority. He approached Damon with measured steps and asked in a deep voice, Who is this, Damon? Damon glanced at me, then back at the man, his expression carefully neutral. Nobody, Dad. He's leaving now. Dad? So this was Victor Ashford, the head of the Empire. The man studied me carefully then, his gaze locked onto my barely visible baby bump. I saw the exact moment recognition hit him. His expression transformed completely. From mild curiosity to intense interest. This Omega, he's pregnant. Damon said nothing, his silence speaking volumes. His father smiled, a dangerous, calculating smile that made my skin crawl. Damon, if that's your child, this Omega isn't leaving this house. Ever. I expected Damon's father to throw me out, but the opposite happened. And somehow that was more terrifying. Henry, isn't it? Victor Ashford said, extending his hand with surprising gentleness. My name is Victor Ashford. If you're truly carrying my grandchild, then you're this family's responsibility now. I looked at Damon. He stood completely still, his face emotionless. But something else lurked in his eyes. Frustration? Fear? I couldn't tell anymore. I didn't come here to stay, I said firmly, ignoring Victor's outstretched hand. I just wanted to know why your son is such a coward that he can't take responsibility for his own actions. Victor laughed, a deep, dangerous sound that filled the room. Coward? Damon isn't a coward, Henry. He was trying to protect you. Protect? I nearly screamed, my composure finally breaking. He abandoned me, left me alone and pregnant with no explanation. That's not protection. Victor gestured toward an ornate chair near a fireplace. Sit down. You want the truth? Then listen carefully. I sat reluctantly, perching on the edge of the seat. My heart raced so fast I felt dizzy. Damon still hadn't spoken, he just stood near the door like he wanted to escape this conversation. This room, maybe this entire situation. Damon was kidnapped 6 months ago, Victor began, his voice taking on a storytelling quality. By our rival family, the Castellanos. They held him for 3 weeks. They tortured him extensively, trying to extract information about our operations, our weaknesses. When we finally rescued him, he was physically fine, we have excellent doctors. But mentally he was broken in ways I'd never seen. My anger faltered slightly. I looked at Damon, seeing him differently now. Victor continued. He said he needed distance from his old life, from this world. So he hid his identity completely. Changed his name, rented a modest apartment, got a regular job. He tried being normal with you like he was just a regular person without billions of dollars in enemies who want him dead. My heart sank. Then why did he leave me when I needed him most? Victor leaned forward, his eyes intense. Because when he discovered you were pregnant, he realized keeping you close meant putting you in terrible danger. The Castellanos still target him constantly, looking for weaknesses to exploit. If anyone spotted you with him, photographed you together, identified you as important to him, they'd use you, both you and your child, as leverage. They'd torture you to hurt him. They'd threaten your baby to control him. I looked at Damon. He remained silent, but now tears glistened in his eyes, making them shine in the chandelier light. So you left without explaining anything. I whispered, you think that was protection? Leaving me terrified and alone? Damon finally spoke, his voice rough. I wanted to keep you safe, Henry, even if it meant you hated me. Safe, I said, my voice rising again. I was alone, Damon, terrified every single day, pregnant and abandoned. Without your scent, I had panic attacks every single night. Omega instincts forced me to search for you constantly, my body literally aching for you. Do you have any idea what that feels like? It's like drowning slowly every single day. He closed his eyes, a single tear escaping down his cheek. I'm sorry. I thought distance was better than danger. Victor raised his hand, stopping us both. You can sort out your feelings later. Right now, Henry, you're staying here. It's safer for you and the baby than anywhere else. I don't want to stay here, I protested, panic rising. I have a life, a job, a roommate. You don't have a choice, Victor said. And this time his voice carried a clear threat underneath the pleasant tone. My grandchild will be born into this family, raised with proper protection. You'll have everything you need, medical care, security, comfort, but you're not leaving. Over the next few days, I realized this estate was actually a prison dressed up as paradise. Beautiful rooms, gourmet food, anything I wanted except freedom. I couldn't go outside the grounds. Guards constantly stood near my assigned room. And Damon, he avoided me like I was a ghost haunting his mansion. I spent hours staring out windows, watching the world beyond the gates that I couldn't reach. My phone had been taken for security reasons. I couldn't contact Luca, couldn't let him know I was okay. I was completely isolated. But one evening, while I stood on a balcony watching the sunset, Damon approached me. I heard his footsteps but didn't turn around. "Henry," he said softly, "we need to talk about this." I didn't look at him, keeping my eyes on the horizon. "About what? You want to tell me how you protected me by making me a prisoner? How hiding everything was somehow better for me?" He moved closer and I caught his scent, that cedar and rain that my omega instincts craved. "I know you can't understand this right now, but I never wanted to hurt you. Every choice I made was to keep you alive. Then why did you?" I finally turned to face him, letting him see the pain in my eyes. "If you loved me at all, you could have told me the truth. Let me make my own choice about the danger." He closed his eyes. "Because love itself puts you in danger, Henry. In my world, love is a weakness that enemies exploit. The more I cared about you, the more danger you were in." "Then what is this baby?" I touched my stomach, feeling the small bump. "Is this also a weakness you wish didn't exist?" He took my hand gently. For the first time in weeks, he actually touched me with tenderness. His scent overwhelmed me completely. That familiar cedar and rain. My omega instinct awakened instantly, recognizing its alpha. "This baby," he whispered, his thumb tracing circles on my hand, "is the most important thing I've ever been part of. The only truly good thing in my entire life." Over the next 2 weeks, Damon stopped ignoring me. But this new closeness felt even more painful than the distance. He came to see me every day, joining me for dinner in the formal dining room, making conversation like we were a normal couple getting to know each other. But there was an invisible wall between us. He wouldn't touch me unless absolutely necessary, and his eyes always held this distant quality, like part of him existed somewhere else entirely. One afternoon, while we walked through the estate's garden, I finally confronted him about it. "Why do you keep pulling away from me?" Damon stopped walking. "I'm not pulling away." "Yes, you are," I said, turning to face him. "You're here with me, but you're not really present. It's like you're physically standing beside me, but emotionally you're miles away." He closed his eyes briefly. "Because getting too close will only cause you more pain, Henry." "Then stop causing it," I said firmly. "Let me be with you properly, without this constant distance between us." He shook his head. "You don't comprehend the full situation. I have enemies everywhere, rival families who want to destroy everything I've built. If they see us together, if they understand how much you mean to me, then what?" I interrupted. "They'll target me? Damon, they already can. I'm living in your house. I'm carrying your child. I'm already involved in your world whether you acknowledge it or not." He said nothing, but I watched his jaw tighten with tension. "Damon," I said more gently, "if you truly care about me, then be with me completely. Stop holding back. Otherwise, let me leave and live my own life." He finally looked directly at me, and this time his eyes held a different emotion. Something raw and vulnerable. "I can't let you go." "Why not?" "Because," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I'm in love with you. And that's the biggest problem I've ever faced." My heart stopped. This was the first time he'd actually said those words, admitted his feelings so directly. But then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He answered it, and I watched his entire face transform, becoming hard and cold. "What? When did this happen?" He ended the call and looked at me with barely controlled panic. "Henry, you need to get inside. Right now." "What's wrong?" "Someone leaked photographs of us together," he said urgently. "The rival families know you're here with me, and they're planning to target you." My blood turned cold. Within hours, the entire estate went into full lockdown. Armed guards appeared everywhere, checking every entrance, every window, every possible weak point. Damon insisted I stay in his room, and this time, he stayed with me. "This isn't your fault," he said as we sat on his bed, the sound of people moving through the house audible even through the thick walls. "This is my fault. I brought you into my world." "Damon," I said, reaching for his hand, "I'm in love with you too. I want to be part of your life." He squeezed my hand. But I need to keep you safe above everything else. Being safe matters less than being with you, I insisted. I can't survive without you anymore. Don't you understand that? He moved closer and finally pulled me into a proper embrace. His scent enveloped me completely, and my omega instincts immediately calmed. This was what home was supposed to feel like. But then we heard gunshots from somewhere downstairs. Damon immediately pulled back. Basement. Go now. No, I protested. I can't leave you, Henry, please. He shouted. I need to protect you and our baby. Tears filled my eyes, but I nodded. I started running toward the basement entrance, but then an explosion rocked the entire house. The floor beneath me shook violently. When the smoke cleared slightly, I saw a group of armed men pouring through a hole blown in the wall. One of them pointed his gun directly at me. Damon Ashford's Omega, he said with a cruel smile. We've been searching for you. The man started walking toward me, his weapon trained on my chest. I backed up slowly, my hand instinctively covering my stomach protectively. This couldn't be happening. I couldn't let them hurt my baby. Stay back, I warned, though my voice shook. He laughed. Or what? You'll do what exactly? But before he could get any closer, Damon appeared like a storm. He moved with lethal precision, disarming two men simultaneously. More guards, Victor's men, flooded in behind him, and suddenly the room erupted into chaos. Damon fought his way to me, grabbed my arm and pulled me toward a hidden passage I'd never noticed before. Get inside and don't come out until I tell you it's safe. Damon, go, he commanded, and the intensity in his eyes made me obey. I ran into the passage, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Behind me I heard gunshots, shouting, the sounds of fighting. My hands stayed pressed against my stomach, as if I could somehow protect my baby through sheer willpower. Minutes felt like hours. Eventually, the sounds faded to silence. I took a deep breath and carefully emerged from the passage. What I saw made me gasp in horror. Bodies lay scattered across the floor. Blood splattered the walls and expensive furniture, and in the center of it all stood Damon, his shirt soaked with blood. Damon, I screamed, running to him. He caught me before I could fall. I'm fine. This isn't my blood. But I could see in his face that he wasn't fine. Not emotionally. He just killed people to protect me, and the weight of that showed in his eyes. This happened because of me, I whispered. He cupped my face in his hands. No. This happened because of my enemies, and I will keep you away from them, no matter what it takes. Over the following days, Damon developed a new plan. He wanted to move me to a safe house, far away in another city entirely, somewhere his enemies couldn't find me. But I absolutely hated the idea. I can't go alone, I said firmly. Damon, please. I won't survive without you. Henry, this is for your safety, he said, frustration evident in his voice. If you stay here, they'll attack again. And next time, I might not be able to save you. Then come with me, I suggested. He shook his head. I can't leave. I have to stay here and face them directly. If I run, they'll only grow stronger and more determined. I grabbed his hand. Then I'm staying here too, with you. He looked into my eyes, and for the first time I saw him actually consider surrendering to what we both wanted. All right, but if anything goes wrong, you immediately go to the safe house. Promise me. I promise. I agreed. The next week, Damon launched a full-scale war against his enemies. He systematically destroyed their operations, captured their leaders, and established his power beyond any question. I'd never seen him so ruthless. He became someone almost unrecognizable, cold and calculating. But every night, when he came home, he would find me and rest his head in my lap. Those moments felt like the only real thing in a world of violence and danger. Sometimes I wonder, he said one night, what your life would be like if you'd never met me. It would probably be so much better. You're wrong about that, I said, running my fingers through his hair soothingly. Meeting you, carrying your baby, these are the best things that ever happened to me. He looked up at me and I saw tears forming in his eyes. I don't deserve you, Henry. Maybe not, I said with a small smile. But you're mine anyway, and I'm not letting you go. He sat up and kissed me, our first real deep kiss since everything had fallen apart and come back together. His scent surrounded me completely, and my omega instincts finally felt content. This was the moment I truly realized that no matter how dangerous his world was, I couldn't live without Damon. We moved to his bedroom. And for the first time since I'd arrived at the estate, we actually connected the way we used to. His hands were gentle on my skin, mindful of my pregnancy. Every touch felt like a promise. Every kiss like a vow. "I'll never let anyone hurt you," he whispered against my neck. "You and our baby are my entire world now." "I know," I breathed. "I trust you." We fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, his hand resting protectively over my stomach where our baby grew. I felt safer than I had in months, completely secure in his embrace. But when I woke up the next morning, Damon was gone. In his place, on the pillow beside me, lay a handwritten note. "I'm sorry, Henry. This is the only way to keep you safe." My hands shook as I read it 3 times, unable to process what it meant. I threw off the covers and searched the entire room, then ran through the house calling his name. Nothing. He'd vanished completely. I found Victor in his office. "Where is he? Where did Damon go?" Victor's face looked older than I'd ever seen it. He surrendered himself to the Castellano family, made a deal with them. "If he gives himself up, they'll leave you and the baby alone. They'll let you live in peace." "No!" I screamed. "That can't be true. I'm going to get him back." Victor blocked my path. "Henry, if you go there, you'll both die. They're expecting someone to try a rescue." "I don't care," I shouted. "I can't abandon him when he needs me." Victor studied my face for a long moment, then finally nodded. "All right. But we do this strategically. If we rush in without thinking, everything will be lost." We spent the next 48 hours planning a rescue mission. Victor insisted I couldn't be directly involved given my condition, but I had no intention of listening to that advice. When his team prepared to leave, I secretly joined them. There was no way I was staying behind while Damon faced danger alone. When we arrived at the warehouse where the Castellanos were holding him, the scene was worse than I'd imagined. Through a window, I could see Damon tied to a chair, his face covered in bruises, blood staining his torn shirt. Tears immediately filled my eyes. Victor's team launched their attack, and chaos erupted instantly. Gunfire, explosions, people screaming. I hid behind a stack of crates as instructed, but when I saw Damon through the smoke, I couldn't control myself. I ran toward him. "Henry?" Damon shouted when he spotted me. "You shouldn't be here." "I couldn't leave you behind," I said, working frantically to untie the ropes binding him. "Never again." We started running together toward the exit, but then a rival alpha stepped into our path. He raised his gun, aiming directly at me. "You shouldn't have left, Damon," he said coldly. "Now you'll both die here." Damon immediately positioned himself in front of me as a shield. "If you're going to shoot someone, shoot me. Let Henry leave." "No!" I cried out. The rival alpha pulled the trigger, but Damon shoved me aside. The bullet hit his shoulder instead of my chest. "Damon!" I screamed. Victor's guards shot the rival alpha before he could fire again. We were finally safe, but Damon was bleeding heavily from his shoulder. "Hospital," I said through my panic. "We need to get you to a hospital right now." Damon grabbed my hand with his uninjured arm. "Henry, I'm going to be fine. Just stay close to me." "I'm here," I said, tears streaming down my face. "I'll always be here." The bullet wound in Damon's shoulder required surgery, but the doctors assured me he would make a full recovery. I refused to leave his hospital room, sleeping in the chair beside his bed, holding his hand even while he was unconscious. When he finally woke up 2 days later, the first thing he said was my name. "Henry?" "I'm right here," I said immediately, moving closer. "You're gonna be okay." He tried to sit up but winced. "You came for me? You risked everything." "Of course I did," I said. "Did you really think I'd let you sacrifice yourself alone? We're in this together, Damon. Always." He reached up with his good arm and pulled me down for a kiss. "I was trying to protect you by leaving. But I realize now that we're stronger together than apart." "Exactly," I said. "No more running. No more sacrifices. We face everything as a team." Victor entered the room then. "The Castellanos have been completely dismantled. Their leadership is either dead or in custody. The threat against you both is over." I felt a weight lift from my chest. "Really? It's actually over?" "Yes," Victor confirmed. "You can finally live without looking over your shoulder constantly. The next few months passed in a blur of healing and preparation. Damon recovered from his injury and my pregnancy progressed smoothly. We moved to a new house. Smaller than the estate. More private, perfect for starting our family. Damon completely restructured his business operations, moving away from the dangerous aspects and focusing on legitimate enterprises. He wanted our child to grow up with a father who came home every night, not someone constantly embroiled in violence. "I'm done with that life," he told me one evening as we painted the nursery together. "You and this baby are more important than any empire." I smiled, watching him carefully paint stars on the ceiling. "You're going to be an amazing father." "I hope so," he said. "I want to give our child everything I never had. Safety, stability, love." 3 months after the rescue, I went into labor. Damon drove me to the hospital, holding my hand the entire time, refusing to leave my side for even a moment. After 12 hours of labor, our son was born. "He's perfect," Damon whispered, tears running down his face as he held our baby for the first time. "What should we name him?" "Elijah," I said softly. "It means my God is Yahweh, a name of strength and faith." "Elijah Ashford," Damon said, testing how it sounded. "It's perfect." Bringing Elijah home transformed everything. Damon, who had been so cold and ruthless in his business dealings, became incredibly gentle with our son. He would spend hours just holding Elijah, singing to him, telling him stories about the life they would have together. I often found myself watching them together, my heart so full it felt like it might burst. This was the family I dreamed of, even when everything seemed hopeless. One night, about a month after Elijah's birth, Damon and I sat together on the porch while our son slept inside. The stars were bright overhead, and the air was warm and peaceful. "I keep thinking about the day you showed up at the estate," Damon said, his arm around my shoulders. "You were so brave, so determined. I thought I was protecting you by pushing you away, but you were strong enough to fight for us." "We both had to be brave," I said, "and we both had to learn that love isn't a weakness. It's what makes us stronger." He kissed the top of my head. "I wasted so much time being afraid that loving you would put you in danger, but the real danger was almost losing you because I was too scared to hold on. We found our way back to each other," I said. "That's what matters." "Henry," he said, turning to face me directly, "I want to marry you. Properly. I want everyone to know that you're mine, and I'm yours. Forever." My breath caught. "Are you proposing?" He smiled. That genuine, warm smile I'd fallen in love with back when he was pretending to be George. "Yes." "Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. "Absolutely yes." He kissed me then, deep and passionate, full of promise and love and hope for our future together. 2 months later, we had a small wedding in the garden of our new home. Victor was there, along with a handful of close friends and trusted associates. Elijah slept peacefully in Victor's arms during the ceremony. As Damon and I exchanged vows, I thought about everything we'd been through, the abandonment, the lies, the danger, the fear. But all of that had led us here, to this moment of pure happiness. "I promise to love you and protect you for the rest of my life," Damon said, his voice steady and sure. "You and Elijah are my whole world. I promise to stand beside you through everything," I said, "to be your partner, your equal, your home." When we kissed as married partners, I felt complete in a way I'd never experienced before. That evening, after all the guests had left, we sat together in the nursery watching Elijah sleep. Damon's hand rested on my knee and my head leaned against his shoulder. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is real," I admitted quietly. "That we made it through everything and ended up here." "Believe it," Damon said. "This is our life now. No more running, no more hiding, no more fear. Just us, our family, and the future we're building together. I love you," I whispered. "I love you too," he replied. "Always and forever." I looked down at our sleeping son, then at my husband, and realized that despite everything, the pain, the chaos, the danger, I wouldn't change a single thing, because every difficult moment had brought us to this perfect place. We were finally home.